remember, a weapon maybe, and sat on the corner of my bed. The next morning, I asked my parents if my little brother woke up shrieking that night, and they both just shook their heads. That was one of my first and only strange experiences in that house. The funny thing is, after a while of sitting on my bed, I eventually went back to the computer to tell my friends what had happened. This is the scariest thing that has ever happened to me. I live in the country, but not a desolate area. I had a decent amount of neighbors that were close enough, but there was still forest in all directions though. I was home alone as usual one late night, when I hear a legit scream coming out of the woods. I went outside and entered my backyard with a flashlight just to take a look through the trees. It was late, and nobody was still up and all the lights were out. Shining the light through the trees, I froze when the light landed on a tall figure probably twice as tall as me, and it had some type of long trunk hanging from its face that went down to its waist, almost like an elephant. It was moving in some kind of creepy march in my direction. Although all I could see from it was blackness, there was no color to it. I walked backwards into my house and slammed the door shut, still looking in the direction of the thing, but it was gone. It completely vanished from sight. I still sincerely hope that what I saw and heard was just in my head. This happened a month ago and is definitely creepy encounter material. The night this happened, I'd been at a friend's loft watching an old scary movie, The Fog. We started the movie late, and I fell asleep midway through. I was woken by a thunderstorm around 2:30 a.m., and that was my exit. On the way home, I stopped for gas. The service itself was closed, with pumps being open for anyone paying by card. I live in a large but spread out city, and the gas station I was at was just outside the Arts District, which was a ghost town late at night. While filling up, I noticed an iPhone laying on the ground at the next pump with no one around for miles, and being the snoop that I can be, I decided to pick it up and take it for further inspection. I figured somebody could call the phone and I'll be able to locate the owner that way, and if not, I'd return it to the gas station the next day when there would be an attendant on duty. While driving home, I started snooping through the phone. Surprisingly, the phone was almost fully charged, and there was no password set. I thought it was strange that the phone wasn't locked, but not strange enough to give it more than a second thought. Of course, I went straight for the photos. What I found was not what I expected. I think there were around 50 photos on the phone. All the photos, with the exception of 2, were candid photos of a young guy around my age in various locations, with at least 10 to 15 of those being him working apparently at a Target, and maybe 5 of the photos being taken in the last district where I had come from. The 2 photos that were not of this guy were selfies of a man whose face was slightly disfigured by what appeared to be burns. They weren't terrible burns, but they definitely made the guy look creepy. And seeing him staring back at me in those photos really spooked me. Weirdly, but still the selfies had clearly been taken inside of a Target, and there was a young guy in the background, who I think the same guy in all the other photos. Realizing I stumbled upon something weird, I closed the Photos app. As soon as I did, the phone locked and a message appeared that said, "I know you have my phone, and I know where you are. I'm coming for my phone." I completely forgot about Find My iPhone until that moment. I quickly realized that the owner of the phone had remotely activated Find My iPhone and was probably tracking me in real time. I thought about taking the phone back to the gas station and dropping it where I found it, but the message along with the photos got the best of me, and I started to get paranoid. I had the crazy idea in my head that maybe the owner of the phone somehow activated the phone's camera and could see me. I'll be honest, I was a little stoned at the time. Fearing the apparent burn victim and stalker who the phone belonged to, I did what any normal well-adjusted adult would do. I pulled over, smashed the phone, and ditched it in a Ripple glass recycling can on the opposite side of town. My bad. But maybe this act of property destruction saved a poor guy from a stalker? I sure hope so. This was in the middle of the summer, and my parents had left for the weekend to go to our house in Cape Cod. It's about a 2-hour drive away, so it's no big deal for them to leave me home for a few days. My mom had made me some pulled pork and pasta to heat up whenever, and I had some money if I wanted to order a pizza. Things were all good. The first night I was alone, I stayed up until 3 in the morning playing Xbox, so I woke up really late the next day. I checked my phone when I woke up and saw it was a little past 1. I had made plans to play some street hockey with some friends at 3, so I threw myself out of the bed and stumbled into the shower. I take really long showers, so when my parents are gone, I go mental. I was in there for 45 minutes when I heard my front door open. The bathroom is directly up the stairs from the back door, and the thing is pretty loud when it opens and closes. I immediately freeze, since obviously I was supposed to be alone. I waited for about 2 minutes, ear-trained, in trying to hear anything else. Nothing. I figured it was the wind, or maybe my parents were home early, so I turned off the shower, wrapped a towel around myself, and slowly walked down the stairs to check it out. So the stairs to the kitchen, where the back door is, are pretty tight and walled in, so I can't see into the kitchen when I walk down. Even though my house is old as shit and each step on the stairs makes a super loud creak, I still took my time and tried to be as quiet as possible. I probably took 45 seconds walking down all 12 of the stairs. So when I get to the second to last stair, right before I could see around the corner into the kitchen, I take a little breath to compose myself. In my mind, I knew I was being stupid. There obviously wasn't anybody in the kitchen. There's no way I wouldn't have heard another noise, and there's no reason for them to still be in the kitchen, even if there were burglars or something in the house. After sort of mentally chastising myself for being a wuss, I sort of chuckle to myself for being so stupid and just normally walk the last 2 stairs and turn the corner into the kitchen. Standing about 2 feet away from me in the middle of the kitchen is a man staring straight at me, perfectly still, with a massive smile across his face, just staring at me. The thing I remember most vividly wasn't his face or his smile, but his arms. They weren't just at his side. He held them in the strangest, most abnormal position I've ever seen. They were where one would normally hold their arms, but he had rotated them to the point where they were almost completely reversed, as well as lifted them up behind him. I don't know why I remember this so much, but it's just the most demonic, abnormal position I have ever seen. Honest to God, I thought I almost had a heart attack right there. Looking back, I realized how fucking creepy this situation was, but in the moment, I just took a step towards him and punched him as hard as I could in the jaw, sort of half slapping, half pushing him towards the ground. The second I connected, I beelined up the stairs, dropping my towel in the kitchen with my heart beating out of control. I fucking sprinted into my room and locked the door behind me. I quickly put a chair up against the doorknob like you see in TV. Almost without thinking, I immediately called 911, and nearly in tears, told the operator what happened. As I sat on the floor of my room, in practically the fetal position, staring at the door praying that a cop would just come here soon, I noticed the light coming from the gap between my door had stopped. The fucker was standing outside my door. There's no words to describe the feeling I had. I was paralyzed with fear, watching the shadow across the bottom of the door shift in tiny ways. I stayed balled up staring at the gap, praying the man would just go away. For what seemed like an hour, all while the 911 operator was asking, "Hello? Sir, are you there? Hello?" I didn't want to make a noise, and even if I wanted to move my arm to bring the phone up to my mouth, I don't think I could have. Eventually the light returned to the gap, and I heard the faintest of footsteps slowly creak the wooden floorboards as he walked down the hall. It was silent for minutes as I just sat there curled up, unable to speak. I heard banging on the front door and the sound of 2 officers entering my house. I finally felt safe, and I opened the door to 2 of them standing there. I almost cried. Nowadays my parents don't even leave me home alone anymore, thank God, and I check every lock on the door before going to bed. I still get nightmares occasionally, and my heart starts racing whenever I see someone standing still. But I'm doing alright. Even working with sketch artists and lineups, the police never found whoever the fuck was in my house. That sends shivers down my spine every time I look outside, half expecting to see him standing across the street smiling under a lamp post. I have no idea what he wanted or who he was, but regardless, let's never meet again. I was working at a well-known pizza chain as a delivery driver during my college years. Well, the drivers started getting sloppy about banking their cash between deliveries. I admit on busy nights, I did too sometimes. So customers started to notice us with big wads of cash whenever we made our change. One night I made a delivery to a trailer park. The lights in the trailer are out, so I go up and knock on the door to confirm that they're out before I leave. This guy with stringy long hair and a beard comes out from around back and calls me over saying he ordered the pie. So I follow him out back. As soon as I turn around the corner, he stabs at me with a hunting knife like Norman Bates. I drop the pizza, my left arm now pretty useless at this point. I don't even feel the pain. Without even thinking, I grab his wrist with my right hand, digging my thumb in below his palm. And then I smash his forearm up against the corner of the trailer. Then I run the fuck back to my car, and I drive to the nearest gas station with the knife still in my shoulder. The clerk calls me an ambulance. When I get to the hospital, the cops are there. While the doctor is inspecting my shoulder, I give the cops a brief explanation to what happened, as well as the order slip, which had the address on it. Then I had to go into surgery to repair some ligaments that had been cut. The cops caught him a couple days later. All the hospitals had been told to keep an eye out for him. And it turns out that I hurt his hand pretty bad. He tried to fix it himself and it got infected. It must have hurt like fuck. It was a pretty rock solid case, seeing that he had fingerprints on the knife he left in my shoulder. This just happened an hour ago. I live with my boyfriend and 3 other housemates in a house on top of a nail salon. So to enter and exit our house, we have to go up and down the stairs through the front and back doors. I was staying up late writing a paper for school. My boyfriend had already gone to sleep and I didn't want to bother him, so I went to work in the kitchen. Now the kitchen is in between the front and back doors, connected by a long narrow hallway. My other housemates generally stay up late too. One of them, whose room is closest to the front door, had just fed his cat and said goodnight to me about 5 minutes before 3 a.m. Around 3 a.m. I heard a door open, and I thought it was my housemate who I had just said goodnight to me. I thought he forgot something or couldn't sleep, so he opened his door to come back into the kitchen. I peeped my head around the hallway to talk to him, but instead I was greeted by a middle-aged man in a dark hoodie walking quietly up the stairs from my front door. Freaking out, I said, "Hello?" The dude stammered and responded, "Am I in the right house?" I said, "Probably not. What address are you looking for?" He responded, "I'm going to the nail salon." I then replied, "Yeah, you're in the wrong place. The nail salon is downstairs. Everyone is sleeping, so the halls are dark. The only light is coming from the kitchen where I was working. I couldn't see him clearly, but I was in the light. He probably could see me clearly." Now mind you, I'm tired, very tired. Only moments after he left, it finally hit me. Why did he ask if he was in the right house if he was going to the nail salon? Why was he walking up my stairs quietly in a dark hoodie? And the nail salon is closed at 3 a.m. Obviously, one of my housemates left the front door unlocked, as me and my boyfriend never go through the front door. But how did he expect to easily open the doors to a nail salon at 3 in the morning? This is actually my stepmom's and her best friend's story. I have my own, but I'm so hesitant to drag some of them up, I'm hoping telling someone else's will open me up a little bit more. My stepmom didn't like us much, but she told my sister and I this experience growing up to scare us out of being stupid. It was our family's stranger danger story. My stepmom, we're gonna call her Macy, grew up as a kind of privileged teen in the 70s, and her mom had moved her over from the States, from England, when she was 9. She went to a pretty nice high school in a really nice town. There she made friends with a girl, Lily, who didn't exactly run with Macy's type of crowd, popular, stereotypical, etc. They really hit it off, and Lily would take Macy to do her type of stuff, hiking, fishing, sailing. There's even a hilarious picture of them camping. My stepmom has raccoon eyes and looks like she hates everything. Anyways, because of Lily's influence, the two of them would do that kind of stuff a good amount. One Sunday, they decided to go hiking in some hills about an hour away. Macy put on what I'm sure were her extremely expensive hiking shoes, and the two of them drove off to a hiking trail. Lily parked in this big clearing with makeshift parking spots, like a piece of wood making a head of a space. They started hiking up the hill, off the path because Lily fancied herself as somewhat of a badass. The hike was nothing extraordinary. If you asked my stepmom, she probably would have lamented for 15 minutes on how sticky and buggy it was. Anyway, they reached the top of the hill, and my stepmom was done. The polished papered side of her was coming out, and she groaned until Lily begrudgingly said, "Okay." They would rest and then walk down slower. They had been heading down the hill for maybe 10 minutes when Macy started bitching again. Lily conceded to walk down the side of the road instead of the rough hiking trail. So there they are, probably looking like a couple of tools geared up for hiking and walking down a crappy road. And after 5 minutes, a truck pulled up next to them. It was a red and rusty and generally just a clunker. The guy driving rolled down the window and the girls looked in through the passenger side window. He had a big beard, a baseball cap pulled down, and long brown hair. He greeted them and even smiled through his beard, asking if they needed a ride. Macy described him as charming and even cute. Lily still says the moment he greeted them, her hackles went up. Despite her better judgment, my stepmom convinced her to get in the truck. It must only be a 10-minute drive down to the car's tops. The two girls opened the passenger's door to this rusty old thing, and the guy directed them behind the seats to get in the back. They settled in and the truck started rumbling forwards. Lily always says that was the point it hit her what a mistake they had just made. The back seat was clean enough, but there was a rope on the floor behind the driver's seat, and 4 boxes of saran wrap, half hanging out from the passenger seat. It seemed creepy and weird, but Lily didn't want to freak out my stepmom, so she just kept her mouth shut. After 10 minutes, the woods didn't seem any clearer, and they didn't see another car the whole time. Lily asked how long he thought it would be. He said he was taking a different route down the hill and had to stop somewhere to get something first. That was it. The girls were 16 and 17, and Lily didn't want to press the issue. She was scared. She could remember his hair because she was sitting behind him. He looked like a woodsy guy, but his hair was super tangled and dirty. She noticed crusted mud on his collar and tried to find something identifiable about him, and just got scared the more she picked up on detail. He was youngish, strong-looking, and had one foot on both of them, so they didn't ask any more questions, and he didn't offer any information, and they drove on. Several minutes after that, they reached a tiny shack log cabin-looking place right there in the middle of a clearing of trees. There was an old stump where someone had been chopping wood and a huge axe stuck in the log. Lily was definitely on red alert now. The guy turned off the truck and slipped out of it saying, "I'll be right back. Don't get out." And he disappeared into the house. Lily tried to talk to my stepmom about how she was incredibly uncomfortable, but she mostly just dismissed it. Lily started begging, increasingly freaked out, and finally put her foot down, demanding Macy exit the truck with her. So they got out and walked around the front of the vehicle. The house was about 50 yards in front of them. Why this guy would have left 2 young girls in the truck alone while he went in the house is beyond me. And they wandered around looking at it, hesitantly. If this guy was really decent and was just trying to give them a ride, it would be super rude to just run off, right? My stepmom had this strict upbringing when it come to a public persona, and saw it as an issue of that nature, so she actually started marching back to the truck, opening the front door to climb in behind the driver's seat. Lily was pissed off and followed her to yell more. On the driver's side floor, half hidden under the seat, there was a big hatchet. It had dried reddish-brown stains covering the blade, and it stuck to the floor under it. Lily understandably lost her shit at seeing it. My stepmom started getting hysterical. They decided that leaving was by far the best option at this point, and just booked it off the side of the property into the trees. They bumbled around the trees for a while until Lily was fairly confident they were on their way back down the hill. My stepmom cried all the way down. Lily felt bad about it, but was also completely freaked out that he could hear them, and tried calming her down. When they finally got back down to the bottom and saw the old wooden fence that surrounded the original parking area, they were relieved. But as they got closer, they saw it. The truck. It was parked on the other side of the gravelly makeshift lot, just sitting there, facing the other way innocently. They couldn't see if anyone was in it, and of course Macy wanted to run for the car, but Lily was super hesitant. She managed to calm my stepmom down, saying she wanted to wait it out before running into the open, to see what was out there. Remember, this is the 70s, no cell phones. There was no ranger station or anyone around. The parking lot was big and empty, and open, and who knows what would have happened if they just strolled across it. Thankfully, Lily convinced my stepmom to chill, and the two of them hunkered down against a big tree, hidden by bushes and other trees, and waited it out for what seemed like a couple of hours. When dark started to fall, all the animals started coming out and making noises, and my stepmom predictably started getting antsy about this and bothering Lily, who was tired and moments away from giving in. She was planning their dash to the car when they heard a clunk across the twilight-lit lot. They watched as one of the back doors swung open, and the bearded guy slid his way out of the back seat. He got out, shut the door, looked around at the surrounding woods for several moments, and then walked back to his truck. The truck lumbered past their car and out of sight. Several moments after watching him drive away, they sprinted to their car as fast as they could, jumped in, and peeled out before they even had the door shut. If this guy is still alive, he's really old. But still, let's not meet. Okay, long story. When I was 19, I moved out of my parents' house and got an apartment. It was in a relatively safe neighborhood but still affordable. 1 bedroom, 1 bath, very modest, nothing fancy. Anyways, I was on the 2nd floor above an old man who couldn't hear anything and below a couple in their early 20s who fought and screamed all the fucking time. And when they